Joyful blessings. This is Kayla Costell, and I'm very excited to share with you about this September 17th, 2024, super potent Perigee Pisces partial lunar eclipse full moon. So many things that are supercharging this full moon to be aware of. And so I wanted to make sure I got this done in plenty of time so people would have an opportunity to tune in and to participate with this full moon. And it's going to also feature Saturn and Neptune, of course, the dreamweaving energy of the new Earth that is connected to pretty much everything we do, and doing that with love and compassion. And it's also part of a true blue moon I've been speaking into for the last full moons that we've been going through. And it's the part of what's creating the reality of having 13 full moons in a season. I mean, in a year, in a year from the December solstice to December solstice. So ancient shamanic traditions knew a great secret that we are the weavers of our reality, and they called this dream weaving. And also it's part organization, part soul searching, and part dream weaving and how we co-create our reality. And I love this image of how it's through the light and through the color and through the imagination and through what we're feeling in our hearts, how we are weaving our reality at this time. So this full moon is really going to help with that. Now, on September 17th, 2024, it's called a super full moon, and that's because it's perigee, closest to the Earth. And I've shared about this in the past. I'll share a little bit more in a moment. It's happening at 7:34 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're on Eastern time, it's going to be 10:34 p.m. When the exact full moon is occurring. So it's different. You have to adjust for your location. And because it's a Pisces full moon, and we can see here's the moon in Pisces sitting between Saturn and Neptune and opposite the sun in Virgo. And so this is really about uh, feeling into what is your most heartfelt, compassion, loving, compassionate experience and sacred connection to all of life. And so dream weaving with this in mind, with the power of loving compassion for the sacredness of all life, dream weaving with this is what creates the reality of a new earth that works for everyone and not just a few. Saturn is matter or form. And so mother comes from the Latin word mater, pronounced mater. And so mater is mother. And so Saturn, from my perspective, is a feminine planet. It is not a masculine planet, but got co-opted a long time ago into being a masculine god. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to really see the essence of Saturn as helping us to dreamweave our new reality from a more heartful and compassionate perspective. And then Neptune, so if we think of Saturn as form and Neptune as formless, Neptune is about the dream reality, about where anything is possible. Sometimes it could be referred to as the field of all possibilities, the field of pure source energy, where anything is possible if we're dreaming into it and then using our action to bring it into form. So we've got that going on, as well as Mars here at 7 Cancer, almost 47, and it's squaring the North Node and the South Node at the North Node at 636 Aries and the South Node at 636 Libra. So it's within about a degree. And so this is also being activated. And what it suggests to me is that Mars represents the action we take to create the new reality we are dreaming into. So it feels like this is all working together. And if we think about the nodes, the South Node being the past, and what are we completing with the past that is done, and we just need to leave that behind. And then what of the past can help us with creating our new future and moving forward in a new way? How are we moving forward in a new way? This is a very exciting possibility, and Mars is about the action that we take in order for that to take place. Now, something I've been bringing forth a lot in looking at where the moon is the difference between the signs and constellations. So here's the full moon on this logo of the signs on the outer wheel and the constellations on the inner wheel. And it's basically showing the overlap of how the signs are not the same, the seasonal signs, seasons, meaning this is like the 0 Aries point, the seasonal signs are not the same as the constellations they now overlay. And at one time, way back when they forgot that they were the same, named them the same names, but the movement kept moving. And so part of my dreaming into a new Earth reality is how we would see the bring back together this idea of the constellations working with the signs and the signs working with the constellations to create a greater sense of wholeness. If we understand what seasonal signs are connected with what constellations, we understand the evolution of what's happening in the current moment. So here we have the full moon. It's somewhat in the water bear and under the circlet of the fish. And we're going to see this more clearly here. The way that the water bear is drawn in this star map is not showing the overlap as much, but here's the moon in underneath the circlet of the fish. And it's at 25, almost 26 Pisces, and then Saturn's at 15 Pisces and Neptune's at 28 Pisces. And also we're going to be talking about Pegasus here in a moment. This constellation that happens to be in this part of the sky, the stars Shiat and Markab are going to be also brought into the story. And so this is around 7 p.m. It's rising up over the horizon. The moon is rising up over the horizon in where I live. So it might be different where you live. And also where I live, I'm looking at mountains. So it doesn't actually rise at the time that it says it's going to rise. It's often much later. So becoming familiar with your horizon line and when planets are rising based on what they say they're going to do and what they actually do is a really great practice to come to get into. Now, looking at the nakshatras, I did this last time I did a full moon video, and I don't know, just got inspired to do that. And this one is the 25th nakshatra. So a nakshatra is literally defined by how far the moon moves from one night to the next, or from one day to the next, but you see it mostly at night. So they were tracking that, and they created these 27 divisions because the moon comes back to a starting place every 27.3 days. So hence 27 nakshatras. Now the moon doesn't come back to a phase except every 29.5 days. So it will not be in the same phase when it comes back to the same place in the sky. So over time, every phase of the moon will be with every nakshatra. And that is also probably part of that whole evolutionary process that we're not going to go too deeply into right now, but just to get a sense of that. So this nakshatra is in its tropical degrees, and it looks like I put tropical in there twice. It's 13 Pisces 51, so almost 14 degrees Pisces to 27 Pisces 11. And so if you have any planets within those degrees, then they were located in this nakshatra. Also includes the two stars from Pegasus, the winged horse that I mentioned a moment ago, Markab, star of honors and success, and Shiat, star of literary and poetic ability, is also linked, and also this nakshatra is linked with the ancient fire dragon, unicorn, Shiva, and Rudra, god of storms. So here we have a Pegasus horse but also a unicorn. So it's a winged unicorn and a fire dragon. And again, here's where the constellation of Pegasus is. The stars Shiat and Markab are located. So the moon isn't close to them, but is in alignment with where they are. So this is pretty cool. And if we come back to this nakshatra, Purva Bhadrapada, the essence of this nakshatra is about the power of breathing spiritual fire. So that must be the fire-breathing dragon. And also rising from the ashes to awaken. These are energies that I feel like are so important for us to tune into as we connect with this full moon and prepare for it coming. And then energy is peace-loving, intelligent, impartial, spiritually motivated. So if we can tune into how we are affected and how we are also not being uh, like everybody else necessarily. Is there's an idealistic energy to this. It's eccentric, it's also non-conforming. So how are we either conforming to a reality because it's the safest thing to do, or how are we really choosing the reality we would love to live in, that we would be so happy and joyous to experience with each other and with the earth herself. This is also connected with influencers, speakers, and orators. And the shadow of this Nakshatra is fearful, nervous, and cynical. So if you notice those feelings coming up and you turning into this energy, then just be in that space of forgiving yourself and loving yourself, even if you're feeling fearful or nervous or cynical. So the super full moon eclipse in this nakshatra, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment, is emphasizing a time for transitioning from one phase to another, from one way of being to another, from one experience of whatever life and reality has been to something new and blossoming. And it's offering opportunities for exploring new, exciting ideas and experiences. And that's happening, interestingly, in this year of the Chinese dragon. And so having the fire dragon being uh, featured in this full moon is just mind blowing. It's just so good, so good. So I just thought I'd put, like, here's the ecliptic, and this is the water bearer constellation. We can see a little bit of here, and then where the nakshatra starts, right before the placement of Saturn, and then where it ends, it's right after where the moon is and where Neptune's really outside of this nakshatra. And so it really connects the water bear and the fish, and those constellations are helping expand possibilities, especially around creative expression and new opportunities that are just now being explored. And Neptune is helping us dream and dream weave the new earth, dream with an eye on how this serves all, or we the people, not just an elite few. And I'll share more about we the people in a moment. And then Saturn helps us create the new form that supports the realization of what we are dreaming into, a new reality, the new reality that we are dreaming into. So Saturn helps us with that ability to, it's like once we have the dream, once we have the vision, once we know what it is that we want to co-create into this reality, and then because Saturn's on Pisces too, it's also helping with the dream weaving. So dream weaving is actually bringing it into a physical form. Very exciting. Now, I often like to share when the moon is rising and setting. This is for where I live. The sun is rising at 6:11 a.m. It's actually rising later than that because it comes up over the mountains. And then it's setting at 6:26 p.m. And the full moon is rising at 6:27 p.m. So the full moon is not exact for another hour, but it's very close to the right. So the sun is setting while the moon is rising. And then that morning, the moon sets at 5:32 a.m. And I also, you can find, these are the rises and sets of the planets that could be fun for you to tune into if that's something you're interested in. This comes from the Star Walk app. If you don't have that, it's a fun app to have to get this kind of information. Now, this is the fourth full moon in the season between the June solstice and the September equinox of 2024. And so this means that we're going to have 13 full moons from December solstice 2023 to December solstice 2024. And this is something that happens about every 3 years, when most years there are only 12 full moons, either in a calendar year or from December solstice to December solstice. So the idea that there are 13 full moons every year is not accurate. It does not happen. There are 13 full moons every about 3 years. So this is one of those years. And so that's exciting. And again, we could look at the full moon energy, the 12, there's 12 full moons in a year. Every 3 years or so, there's a 13th full moon in the year. So these numbers are both sacred to the moon, both 12 and 13. Now, this is also a perigee full moon. And as I've shared before, when the moon is going around the earth, it's a bit of a elliptical orbit. So there's times where it's furthest away from the earth, or apogee, and then there's times where it's closest to the Earth, or perigee. And in recent times, there's been this idea that the moon, when it's at perigee, is a supermoon. It does have a bigger impact on the Earth's magnetic field, on tides, on weather patterns, on volcanoes going off, and other effects that it can have. So these full moons are more impactful to the Earth. So this super moon or perigee moon occurs when the moon is within 90% of its closest approach to the Earth at the time of the full moon. So perigee moons can happen at different phases of the moon as well. And hopefully everyone got to see that perigee supermoon rising in August of 2024. It was huge and it was stunning. And you really see it's just a big moon rising. And so we have August 19th was a perigee moon, September 17th, a perigee moon, October 17th also, and it's the closest one, and then November 15th is a perigee moon. So these perigee moons for 2024, again, are going to continue to have an impact, but this one is including the partial lunar eclipse that we're going to talk about in a moment. But also, for those of you who want to find out when the moon is rising and setting in your area, this link will be in the show notes. So just click on the show notes, click on the more button to open up the rest of the show notes, and you will find the link. And then you can put in your place where you are. And I put this in for Tucson, where I am, and it's showing that the moon rises at 6:25 p.m. Of course, again, not always at the same time that we're looking at. And here's the moon sunset at 6:26 p.m. So the exact full moon is at 7:34 p.m. So the big moon rising is moving towards its exact full point. Sometimes on the day of the full moon has happened earlier in the day, and it's still moving towards its greatest full point. But this time we'll have the moon rising in most places around the planet. It haven't quite reached its maximum full point yet. Now, the partial lunar eclipse, dated September 17th or 18th, depending on where you are, what time zone you're in the planet. So it's visible in Europe, much of Asia, Africa, North America, South America, the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Ocean, Arctic, and Antarctic. And this is showing, I'll have another one that shows a little bit clearer where it is, but it's just a little bit of the shadow of the Earth on the face of the moon. So what's interesting about any lunar eclipse is because the Earth is between the sun and the moon. So it's the shadow of the Earth on the face of the moon. So looking at our own shadow. So we'll have a chance to look at a little bit, at least, of our shadow. And it's creating a vesica Pisces that looks like a portal. So it feels like there's a portal energy that will also be helping to supercharge our intentions as we're going forth. So this is a better map. And also I will put this link in the show notes for people if you want to have a better look at it. And the even a partial lunar eclipse does have an impact on the Earth. Of course, the total lunar eclipse has the biggest impact, but a partial eclipse does, and it helps to accelerate manifestation of what we are holding in our thoughts and feelings. So ideally, we're using this time to consciously choose our intentions and energize them with love and gratitude, because it's not just what we're thinking about, but it's what we're feeling. And so if our thoughts are in conflict with our feelings, then it may not come together, it may not manifest. So we want to get them aligned. And if we can get into the place where we're deeply and profoundly grateful for the intentions being fulfilled that we are feeling into at that time, then they're far more likely to happen at an accelerated rate. So because this is also the rare fourth full moon of the season, and a perigee, supermoon, a partial lunar eclipse, it's like what it is that we are meant to do, and that how we're supercharging this, what we are holding in our hearts and our minds, is going to have an effect. So even if people aren't conscious of it, it's going to have an effect. So ideally, we're conscious and we're working with it consciously. Now to bring in the U.S. Constitution. So on September 17th, 1787, it was approved, the Constitution was approved by 39 delegates from the 12 states. Rhode Island wasn't there because apparently the representative for our delegate from Rhode Island, John Dickinson, was ill. So George Washington signed his name by proxy. But as president of the convention, Washington was the first to sign the Constitution, and the other delegates signed by state in strict congressional voting order. And I find that fascinating because it is a Virgo moon, Venus in Virgo, Virgo, Mercury, and a Virgo midheaven. So it's very Virgo to have that. And that's squared by Jupiter, and of course Vesta, and who's all about the Virgo mysteries anyway. And then Chiron is also squaring Mercury and Venus, suggesting that there's still challenges around healing how we are really communicating the truth of who we are and how we're expressing it from a feminine perspective, and how women weren't really included. All men were created equal, but not all humans, not all beings were considered to be equal because women weren't considered to be that. In the book, The Millennium Myth, Love and Death at the End of Time by Michael Gross, he describes the beginnings of the United States as being founded on the high ideals and principles of equality for all people. And the reality is this vision and these ideals have never really happened or manifested for we the people, maybe for we the few of us, but not for everybody necessarily. So we can look at this Constitution, the signing of this Constitution, the preamble, and how are we respecting and honoring this noble intention for all, and holding this vision as part of the vision we have for this full moon. And so talk about that in a minute, but let's just first speak into the preamble. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So that is a powerful intention. And here we have on the day of the solar return has just happened prior 2440. It's 1 degree. It's like, a few hours prior to the actual full moon has the solar return happened for the US. And it's also square Jupiter. The full moon is square Jupiter, as we saw before, and the natal Jupiter of the US, and the transiting Jupiter has almost returned to its natal position. And Mars, there's just been a Mars return as well. So Jupiter is expanding. It's expanding whatever we're holding in consciousness and whatever we're feeling. So if we're contracted, we're angry, we're frustrated, it will expand that. If we're in a loving, compassionate, forgiving, kind, caring place, it will expand that. And especially in the Gemini mysteries, reminding us not to be so serious and maybe have a little more fun. So the original American dream and intention, as described in the Declaration of Independence and essentially in the Constitution as well, was about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, when happiness referred to the state of the soul or spiritual fulfillment, not material fulfillment, not having a lot of money, not having it, at the expense of others, especially, or certain ways of success that we've attributed to more of an economic way of experiencing happiness rather than the soul's way or the spiritual way of feeling that experience of happiness and fulfillment. So we could say that happiness seems to be collectively defined by material wealth, often gained at the expense of others by those who are primarily or only concerned about their bottom line. So in the Constitution, it included statements like, we the people, a more perfect union, justice, domestic tranquility, blessings of liberty now and for the future generations. And we could imagine it says a more perfect union. It's not expecting it to be perfect, but hopefully we are moving towards greater perfection all the time and upholding these intentions. So my feeling is that it's time we, the people, hold ourselves accountable to this original vision and take action that supports true fulfillment of this wondrous intent, where the earth and all people are considered important and valued, not just the people in the United States, not just this country or these people or the elite that are running the country or whatever's going on. It's like, how do we really energize and support everyone, and being able to make the choices and live their life in ways that are fulfilling to them, whatever that might be. So we're going to kind of complete this by coming back to the dream weaving perspective. And Gary Wright had an album called Dreamweaver and a song called Dreamweaver. Or just this is just something I've shared before, but I just have to share it again. It was a song that came out in 1975. And it was inspired by the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And when the book was given to Gary by George Harrison, one of the Beatles. So Paramahansa Yogananda's poem, God, 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 made reference to the idea of the mind weaving dreams. So that's kind of what inspired this song. But it was also an expression that John Lennon popularized in his song God, this high ideal of dream weaving. And the song that he created depicts the declaration that he was the dreamweaver of the 60s, breaking away from the influences and dogma that had influenced his life. So there will be a link in the show notes to a song version of Gary Wright's version of Dreamweaver. And I just thought I'd share a few of the words just because it helps us to tune into this energy. Fly me high through the starry sky, maybe to an astral plane. Cross the highways of fantasy, help me to forget today's pain. Oh, Dreamweaver, through the dawn though the dawn may be coming soon, there still may be some time. Fly me away to the bright side of the moon, full moon. Meet me on the other side. And Dreamweaver, I believe you can get me through the night. I believe we can reach the morning light. And so this is a great anthem or song that you can play to help you as you're tuning into your intentions or working with this in a ceremonial way. So I just want to complete this and once in a blue moon. So like if we think of the blue moon as not just the fourth full moon or 4 full moons in a season and 13 full moons in a year, but as an energetic energy that is something that's rare and it doesn't happen that often. And clearly this full moon is that. So once in a blue moon, life will blow you a rarity and it will leave you with astonishment. May we all be astonished in the best, most inspiring ways possible as we tune into and work with this full moon, because we're informing the mysteries as much as they're informing us. And this is something that we can work with in a magical, amazing, powerful, transformative way.